And we're live. Welcome back to the Loopcast. Thank you for joining us today. Joined by Erica and Josh. And I have to start up. Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to everyone in the chat. Happy Mother's Day to our resident mother, Erica. Erica, did you have a good day?
Erica. Yeah, I had a great day. I had a great Mother's Day. My daughter came home from college on Mother's Day, so I had all the 7 chickens under the house roof there, and
did she have to wash off all the makeup from being in the encampments, or?
Yeah, she had some lice issues too. You know, she picked them up. Hillsdale had massive Antifa riots. You can imagine.
Yeah, probably not.
No, the biggest controversy at Hillsdale in the last week of classes was a group of, shall we say, papist enthusiasts stole a Vatican flag from somewhere, and they hung it from the tower of Central Hall over Hillsdale campus. This was like massive riot level at Hillsdale. So that was the most controversial thing, was the papal flag was flown from the top of the hall, and that's about as
the most
exciting
controversial thing we're going to see at Hillsdale. It sounds like a pretty good.
And you know, as a parent, I feel like my tuition money is actually doing its job at Hillsdale. V. Columbia won't even get into that.
Yeah,
we've kind of beat that dead horse a little too much, I think. But well, it's not dead, unfortunately.
I just thought it was funny though that Hillsdale said they had the 180th year in a row where they had no anti-Semitic rallies. Pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Who was the commencement speaker at Hillsdale? They usually bring in a big fish.
Oh,
right?
They had Pat Sajak.
Oh,
that's
was
right.
the guy, Wheel of
expected.
Fortune fame. Yeah, and Miriam was there. She said he was really good, and he's a man who goes through life. Probably everyone sees him as kind of shallow, just like this game show host. But she said he was actually like really deep, and
which is probably unfortunate, because I'm sure he's like a nice guy who probably has thoughts and a family, and but he's going to be forever the Wheel of Fortune guy.
The Wheel of Fortune guy. Yeah, no, he had really good thoughts. And Pat Sajak, I didn't know this, but he did not graduate from college. He does not have a 4-year degree. But we're going to go into populism here. I mean, the guy is, pulling himself up. He's taken every Hillsdale online course. He did a 2-year thing with Hillsdale, and he just loves it. He loves the ethos. He loves the mission. And
Did he get like an honorary degree from Hillsdale when he gave the speech?
Yeah. I think he did.
Happens.
Yeah. Yep. He got his honorary degree.
There was a funny time. President Reagan gave a speech at his alma mater, Eureka College, and they gave him an honorary degree. And he said, "I thought the first one was honorary."
I love that guy.
I think Father, we're gonna get into commencement speeches a little bit later, but Father Mike Schmitz was like, "I bet you guys feel pretty dumb right now. Like, they invited me to get this speech. I get a degree, and all I had to do was stand up on the stage and talk to you, and you had to go through 4 years." But yeah, really good. We got some good speeches we're gonna get into. But first off, the speeches that were most interesting to me, and I feel like the most meat on the bone. And this is something like, when I watched it, I think I saw it come across my feed. It was like, just got done playing pickup basketball Saturday, and saw it come across. I think it was just like in my car, like all sweaty. And I was just like, oh, I need to watch this. First off, it's a speech from this guy, Winston Marshall, who, I don't know if anyone's like a big Mumford and Sons fan. He was the former
Mumford and Sons period. Yep.
Yeah, former banjo player for Mumford and Sons. So I was like, what is he doing in Oxford talking about populism? So it's just one of those videos I had to watch immediately. And there's so much to talk about here. It was phenomenal, but his opponent in Oxford was the one and only Nancy Pelosi. Now, some of you may know her from her legendary stock trading status, maybe also as Speaker of the House for many years. But the debate was about whether or not populism is a threat to democracy. Okay. And so both sides, there's 3 speeches either way, I believe. And Nancy Pelosi was the 5th of the speeches in favor for the resolution that populism is indeed a threat to democracy. So she was giving the speech, hoping that people would vote don't even know if there's anything more I could say about it. Can we just run that Pelosi clip for her? This is mid-speech.
Poor souls, of these poor souls who are looking for some answers. We've given them to them, but they're blocked by some of their views on guns. They have the 3 Gs, guns, gays, God, that would be a woman's right to choose. And the cultural issues cloud some of their reception of an argument that really is in their interest. Of these
These poor souls being the voters in
Oh,
America.
that's yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that was their central thesis in the first part of the 21st century. What's the matter with Kansas? There was a whole book written about this.
Yeah.
How could the voters of Kansas, these people who are very poor, middle of the road or poor, why are they voting for Republican candidates? Because Republican candidates are what support the super rich.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
how the tables have turned.
Nothing makes me want a populist revolution more than hearing Pelosi say
Anything.
your culture. Yeah, anything really. But,
Literally, just
culture issues are clouding your better judgment. I know it's better for you. You should listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
She's just
she
dripping
totally
with contempt for just normal Americans, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
she should have given that speech in front of her freezer that was $7,000.
right. You could have just zoomed in from California, I guess.
Yeah, and this was interesting too. I think you had a great rundown of the speech, Pogo. So if you want to kind of give her outline,
Yeah. So
go. Why don't you give like a little outline of the speech, because I think there's a lot there.
So here's my thing now with a lot of media as well, because I think it's important. I'm trying to do a better job of just giving people good faith in the beginning of trying to understand the perspective they're coming from. So I went and watched the entire speech. I took notes on it, and then I watched the rebuttal. And in Nancy Pelosi's speech, I'm almost positive after watching it now that she winged it. I don't think there was much preparation. It seemed very off the cuff. And her argument was that populism, as described by the other side, doesn't apply anymore. So they were talking about like Jacksonian populism, early American Revolution, which is also kind of hilarious that it was in Britain. Some of the things she said specifically that this election coming up is Washington crossing the Delaware, is exactly the words that she used to British people in England.
To the
which I
British
was like,
people?
whoa, like, interesting choice of metaphor.
Talk about turning the tables.
We're going to kill people on Christmas. What?
Yeah. So anyway, it starts off, she's saying that populism has mutated into a form of ethno-nationalist populism. It's not going to take too much work to figure out she's talking about white people. And so her definition of populism is people in America that don't like new things, don't like change. She talked about immigration. She talked about, I think immigration was the big one, and it's basically using it as a slur. She often used the phrase "these people." She didn't really have a specific definition. Whenever she referred to the populace, she kept saying "these people," almost as if it's a slur. Obviously, coming out with God, gays, and guns. These people don't really know what's best for them. We know what's best for them, and
almost like she's not willing to even give them the dignity of being named, like Trump and the MAGA crowd, that ilk,
the deplorables.
These people,
Hillary's favorite term,
right? And she just kind of bounced really around a lot. I think her biggest thing was that populism equals voter suppression somehow. I can't remember she brought herself to use the T word. I don't think she actually said Trump specific. I think she might have said MAGA or something like that. Interesting that this is all going on in England as well. Like she's speaking to an English audience about America. And I know that American politics definitely are popular globally as like what's going on. But I think because it was kind of all over the place and didn't seem like it was very well scripted or structured, hearing the rebuttal from the Mumford and Sons guy, I don't mean that in a meaning way. It's just like, whoa, where'd this guy come from? Winston Marshall. So he comes out immediately and smartly saying elites have changed the meaning of populism to malign ordinary people. So he said populism now means bigot, ethno-nationalist, racist, etc. And he made an interesting point about how Obama actually during his election did not want, I think this was during the Trump election in 2016, didn't want people to call Trump a populist, smartly realizing that he thought that Obama himself or that Bernie Sanders, people that work on behalf of poor people against the rich, were the true populists, that Trump was not a populist, didn't want to concede that term to him. But then quickly, as we got to 2020, he switched his tune on that, and that Trump is now a populist because he saw the negative connotations coming with the word. So the words themselves, the definitions have changed. Mm-hmm. And then this was a fun part, I've watched a few of these Oxford debates. I know you have too, Erica, but he said that if the motion was political violence is a threat to democracy, that he would be on the other side. He'd be on the negative. And he said, for example, all political movements can succumb to political violence. Look at January 6th, but then also look at BLM riots in June of 2020 when the Portland courthouse was taken over. Pelosi would agree that's bad, right? And then she quickly was like, nothing could be as bad as like she interrupted
They are
him.
not equivalent.
Not equivalent. I will not agree.
She freaked out.
And that was only one of the things he got her on. The second thing he got her on was that she herself said that the 2016 election was, quote, hijacked, looked her right in the eyes and said, direct quote, hijacked. And she said, yes, it was hijacked. Like she said out loud on a hot mic, like, oh my gosh, like these people. But his main
That's
point.
when he should have said, hey, Nancy, can I get a copy of your speech real quick? And they could have looked it over and go, oh yeah. Rip it right up.
Yeah. And so his main point, and I think this is smart, he brought up a lot of different movements across the world about how populism is democracy. It's the work of ordinary people keeping elites in check. And looked right at Nancy Pelosi. There's not a better example of an elite that has nothing but contempt for ordinary people in the country that don't see the wisdom that her and all the fellow global elites have to provide to them. But his other point was that the left used to be the populists. They used to be the party of the working person. But they are now, the global left has now become the establishment, the elites. If you want to look at things like Brexit, the Hong Kong revolution, farmer revolts against ESG from Davos, truckers in Canada with Justin Trudeau shutting down bank accounts, Biden, he brought up a lot of examples, Biden colluding with social media to censor free speech, big pharma lobbies in DC, Trump being removed from all social media. And then he brought up some interesting headlines from 2016, The New Yorker in terms of media, the case against democracy after Trump won. WAPO, the problem with our government is democracy. Vox, two prominent political scientists say the problem with democracy is voters. So
And
his
that's
main
really-
ending quote was, mainstream media elites don't just disdain populism, they disdain the people, which I think is the proper observation throughout all of this.
Yeah,
Amen.
and it's really interesting to see the change in language there. So in 2016, they actually start attacking democracy. Now in 2024, everything's a threat to democracy. Like democracy is the good thing, but they've changed the meaning of democracy to be complete ruling elite hegemony. So they just throw these words back and forth to see like,
Anything
what
approved by
pulls
the
best.
CIA.
Exactly. Right. CIA, FBI, and the Biden administration. That's democracy. And it's just not. And I think the way that Winston Marshall points out how they've changed the meaning of populism back and forth, just depending on which way the wind blows and what's going to be in their favor. It's we're going to get into Chris Rufo in a little bit about his tactics. It's that takeover of the language. The left has got so good at it, but at this point, I think they're starting to get frantic enough, and these things are changing. Like the meaning of democracy, is it good? Is it bad? It's changing so rapidly that the facade's starting to crack. That's my hope, that they're getting too bold with it.
But I would agree that Nancy Pelosi embodies, like, par excellence, the true out of touch elite. I'm in control. You little people, we're going to govern everything for you. We don't want it. It's not we the people anymore. It's Nancy Pelosi in charge. And again, the insider trading scandal that she did, like how much money she would make on stocks. And you think to yourself, what about us little guys? Well, have no fear. There's they've started this thing about 18 months ago where they track all the stocks that Nancy Pelosi buys, and you can invest in the same stuff that she does. It's an EFT set up for exactly the same kind of stocks that she has. And it's gone up like 30% in the last 18 months, higher than the S&P 500.
Much higher.
So, and they actually call the stock EFT thing, it's called
ETF.
Yeah, right. But the one that's named after her fund is NANC, Nance. I love it. It's so good.
So if you want to improve your portfolio, go check it out.
The point he finishes with too, and I think this was interesting for me to think about. Like Democrats, if they truly were listening to the people, like they should be running away with this election. And it always reminds me of what you say, Josh, of like Trump was just like seemingly one of the first people to come along, even to ask Christians, what do you want? What do you want? And I'll do it. And he actually did it, as opposed to so many Republicans that came before that talked a big game but didn't deliver. And he said to their face, like, Nancy Pelosi, the left, if you guys really are champions of the working people, if you're really champions of the average middle class person, you'd be running away with this election with how much Trump has gone through in terms of all his scandals and his personality and being bombastic. If there was someone working for the average person, taking care of them, making sure that inflation was in check, that they had enough money for housing, that they could have proper jobs, that they felt safe, that the border was secure, because that's a majority opinion right now. We want a secure border. It would not be close. But instead it's funny they use the gays, gods, guns thing. Global Democrats have their golden calves as well. Abortion, the big A word, right? Like they've made the whole campaign in America abortion. That is what we're running on. We can't run on anything else.
And I find it, it's interesting that this was actually done at Oxford because Nate Hochman, you've interviewed him before, I think.
Yeah, he's a stud. Good guy.
He is. He posted a bunch of tweets over the weekend I thought that were just top notch, and he was talking about England. And we complain about conservatives in the United States, but let me tell you what, the Tories in England are so bad. And he just went through chapter and verse all these tweets from these guys, and you're like, oh my gosh, if this guy were like a senator from Utah or Idaho, he'd have been like tarred and feathered. Like the stuff that these guys were doing is crazy. And you look, Brexit happened like what in 2016 or whatever,
yeah. Right?
And the Tories, what do? They get in power and they open the door to widespread for immigration. In fact, Nate showed this pie chart, and it said, started in 2011, but from 2011 to 2022, you look at all the foreign-born people in the UK, and 42% of those foreign-born came since 2011, just in the last 15 years or whatever. It's like it's insane. Like you just like the sheer numbers. Like you would think the Tories would have hit the brakes on this,
right,
and stopped it, but they didn't. They're like, go.
Yeah, and that's part of what we see here is that the elites on both sides are against the people. They're against the demos, the democracy. And so when you say, okay, well now the Tories are in power after Brexit, it's like it's not exactly apples to apples, obviously, but it's kind of like saying, okay, well now the Republicans are in power, but they're led by Mitch McConnell. Like it's not like the populists took over after the Brexit vote. The power just shifted to the other end of the horseshoe, but they're both elites.
And that's the thing. I guess the concern here is that we've heard so much about the power of runaway democracy and populism being so dangerous and all that other kind of stuff. It's like that's not untrue. That of course, populism unmoored from reality or values can cause problems. But it's kind of hilarious that those are the only problems we ever hear about. It's never that we would have an oligarchy where we have this ruling elites that would do everything to aggrandize themselves and their friends and screw the rest of everybody else. Like we never hear about that problem. We never hear about the problem of elites that are out of touch. We only hear about like what would happen if the people got a little bit more power.
Right, because we have a successful PR campaign from basically state-sponsored media when it comes to like MSNBC, CNN. I mean, all these mainstream medias. That's the problem they're talking about. If anything, we are so much closer to a functional oligarchy in this country than populism. We're not even close. So it's like even if we could just swing it back a little bit, because the whole thing with Brexit,
the pendulum, move it a little bit, more towards the middle.
What people wanted in Brexit, they wanted more sovereignty. That's why people voted to leave the EU. I mean, if you look at things that are going on in Ireland right now, they just had a protest on a scale we've never seen in America in terms of percentage of population over immigration. Exactly what you were saying. And like the UK left to control their immigration problem, and they got let down by the elites in their own country, these conservative people. So, I just, maybe I'm a crazy populist radical, but yeah, I believe we should keep our elites in check, and they should listen to us. And if they don't, remove them. And I'm going to vote for someone that's going to listen.
And let Ireland be Ireland. Let England be England.
That's right.
I mean, I really, let Germany be Germany. Let Hungary be Hungary. Why can't these countries have their own distinct cultures and languages and peoples? Why is it that we have to allow the Middle East to take over Europe? I mean, they tried, 700-800 years ago and failed. Now this is their next attempt.
Because the Crusades, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I think it points to one of the biggest challenges, not even challenges, the biggest disasters facing the entire West right now is just this loss of confidence and pride in good pride, not like Pride Month is coming up, Pride, but this like good pride and confidence in what the West has to offer. And it's just, when you see countries like Ireland and like the UK and Germany and Greece just being overrun with and just kind of like laying down and opening the door for these mass migrations to come in and not holding on to their own culture. It's because they have lost touch with their own culture. And John Paul II warned of this back in the 90s when he was saying if the EU formulates its charter, if Europe formulates its charter without reference to its roots in Christendom, it will lose itself. And by golly, was he right? Right?
Bingo.
They totally unmoored themselves. It goes back to, I think we talked last week about the cut flower culture, where we have this European culture that the roots were cut off with the coming of, the radical left, Marxism, communism from Christianity, and now we're seeing the flowers are dying. Like it's a dying culture. So, but hey, Japan's xenophobic, but maybe they had something right there, right? Right there.
Japan is for the Japanese. The Japan believes Japan is for the Japanese. That's not racist. That's reality. Speaking of, I just had a question, and maybe Josh knows the answer to this. We have a video that was sent to me many times, and it was of the illustrious leader of the People's Republic of California, Gavin Newsom. And if we could we get that one played, Simon? It is at the 1:45 mark.
Yeah, I need to set this up a little bit too.
Yeah,
So
sound we get that
1:45, we're
done.
going to get the answer. But here's the question the reporter asked. So this is at a press conference he gave over the weekend. Reporter asks, can we explain to Californians how we moved from $100 billion surplus to such a significant deficit in just a few years? And if we can cue that.
Oh, I bet it's not his fault. I'm going to guess. Probably not him.
Hell no.
I'm sure he's innocent.
Indication that climate change has impacts well beyond those that are often promoted. I would consider our financial delays as just another example of why we need to tackle them. Another reason I'm looking forward to conversations.
Okay, a
that
few
we'll have
observations.
next week.
One,
The
we
weather.
didn't skip to 1:45 because he had something meaningful to say before, and we're just fake newsing it. Truly, what he said before was nonsensical and not connected to. It almost felt like an AI messed up or something and said a bunch of non sequiturs that didn't have anything to do with the question. So what eventually answered after a minute and 45 was it's climate change. And another observation, he is in this press conference. I don't know if he's just tired or something. It was late or something, but he sounds defeated. Like he doesn't sound like the same Gavin Newsom that Democrats were touting to potentially be the Biden replacement as little as a year ago.
Debating
And-
Ron DeSantis.
Right, like
Right?
traveling
Not
to
that
China,
guy.
traveling to Georgia. I mean, he was doing a national press junket.
Maybe he just thought this was his year and Biden was going to quit and he was going to have a shot at the big show.
He's just sad. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, what happened?
Could be.
Yeah. What happened to Gavin? Mercer.
Well, it might have been.
Oh.
So no comments from Mercer. Why do you think he's lost this like rising star status?
I don't know if
Maybe
he's
he
lost
hasn't.
it or not. I mean, we'll see. I mean, California is a total, crazy show over there. We'll see if, again, he is a master of demagoguery. So you might have caught him on this video. You might have caught him on a bad day. Maybe it was just he had a case of the Mondays. But I never underestimate him because you're like, no one's going to fall for this stuff. Like, are you kidding me? Like, California reelected him twice. I mean, that's
Yeah,
no.
that blows my mind. I mean, what?
Speaking of back to the populism briefly, when you talk populist Javier Milei in Argentina should be a case study on how to do it.
Mr.
He
Chainsaw
did.
needs
This
to
guy,
come up
Winston
here.
Marshall, brought him up in that speech as an example of someone who's done it well. And there's another example. This is a little bit off, but someone, I think it was The Economist, just wrote an article about gang violence increasing in Latin America. And
Except
Except.
no. They didn't even concede it. They're like, gang violence is rising across Latin America, and authoritarian, heavy-handed prison policies aren't going to solve it.
Oh, really?
Even though we saw, are
Wait.
we just forgetting about El Salvador? What's going on there?
yeah, we're forgetting about the the evidence.
I'm
which is
surprised. I mean,
President Bukele in El Salvador. How do you say it? Is it Bukele? Bukele
Kelly.
in El Salvador. He's killing it. And talk about overwhelming populist victory. He was just reelected last year. We've covered him a couple of times. And he comes down heavy-handed on the gangs and he cleans house. He cleans it out.
The
I would
criminals
love to
belong
get
in jail.
stats.
What can
I
you
would
do?
love to get stats on emigration out of El Salvador and if that has changed under him. Can we get
If you
those
can
stats?
put criminals
Well,
behind
yeah,
jail,
the gangs are coming to America. That's
Yeah.
the immigration that's going on right now.
yeah, but I mean, like, I'm surprised someone hasn't taken him out yet, because like he's so effective at putting these bad hombres in jail, and you're like, why can't we do that in the United States? Why can't we
must
do
have
that in
really
Los
good Secret
Angeles, New
Service.
York,
That's all I'm
Chicago,
saying.
Houston? Why can't we do that? Like,
Well,
why do we have to live like a third world country in these big cities that we have?
They lack the political will to do something that's going to be potentially unpopular.
Exactly. Don't we have governors in those states? No.
We do, but they're Democrats. So
Well,
yeah,
not in
actually-
Texas. Like Abbott, go for it. Crack down in Houston. Crack down in Dallas. Let's go.
Yeah, the El Salvador example is so interesting in a lot of ways. Like we actually, my family's like refurbishing a house, and the guy working on it is from El Salvador. Left when he was 17. He's in his late 30s now, and so it's interesting to get a perspective from someone that lived there. And I think he asked, like, do you have any friends like from El Salvador that either came here or maybe back home? And he's like, no, they're all dead. Like everyone he was friends with when he was 17 was killed because gang violence was such a problem that in order to get in these gangs, you have to kill someone. So like you couldn't live a normal life. That's why he had to leave. And to see the Economist headline, gangs are gaining ground in Latin America. This is why iron fist policies won't beat them back. This kind of stuff doesn't mean anything to someone that has a country now that they can go home to.
I'd
and
like
not
that
have
before
to-
to talk to your friend.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I would love to get this guy on. I'm going to go hopefully this upcoming weekend to go meet him. But it kind of goes back to the regime media doesn't mean much when someone's fulfilling the will of the people, right? The will of the people of El Salvador was we want a safe country. We want to be able to just exist. People
it'd
walking
be
around
one
the
thing
streets
if
with
the
tattoos that signify that they've killed someone belong in jail.
Okay, but like, yes, but like the Economist saying, it's one thing if they say these draconian policies will have negative effects on civil rights and this and that or whatever, but they just to say these policies won't work when in fact they are functionally working, and the people in that society are like, this is a trade-off we have to accept because it was absolutely wretched before, and that's why the guy won with like 70% of the vote or whatever it was.
It says in the article, Nayib Bukele has locked up almost 80,000 people, over 1% of the population in the past 2 years. The murder rate has plunged. Officials from across the region praise and seek to copy what they call the Bukele model. They shouldn't. So they don't want 93% approval rate. They don't want safe streets. I don't understand what could possibly be wrong with.
Yeah,
It's
and this is
almost
just
like
such,
the regime media wants us unsafe.
yeah. Why
Sure
would that
feels like
be?
that.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see that. Well, we've seen that swing happen in the United States too. And I know, Josh, you love to bring up the swing with the working class, the Black and Latino working class, swinging towards populism. And it's issues like this, like police presence, like supporting law enforcement, that really swing the votes of people who are in the working class and in these poorer neighborhoods, because they're the ones who bear the burden when the elites have this theory about rehabilitation and putting people back on the streets, and they don't even have to ever see it because they're behind their gated houses, often, Beverly Hills or whatever the rich place is now in California, if there is one. And so it's when we have policies like this that are working in El Salvador that the elites should stand up and take notice, because they're going to lose the votes from the poor working class. It's not just going to be like identity politics that, well, you're Black, so you're going to vote for me. It's not going to work that way, because it's the poor Black people in the inner cities and the poor Latino who are suffering at the hands of these ideological elitist policies.
So if we go to some positive media now, we had Commencement.
Please.
And we thought we'd do the liberty of taking some of our favorites here. Now, no bias at all. Father Mike Schmitz, Ave Maria University.
Oh, yeah.
It was pretty sick. That's a big fish for Ave Maria, the Notre Dame of the South, as it's known. Got a big commencement speaker.
By who?
And so that
By
was
its
my
graduates.
Hey, first off, congratulations to anyone who graduated
Yeah,
college.
congrats to all the
it's a
grads.
huge accomplishment. A lot of hard work paying off, hopefully. And Father Mike Schmitz, if I could give a quick summary of his speech, he made some good points, because I love Catholic commencement speeches, because often, and I can't say all of them, but this one for sure was a good, like, don't go follow your dreams type thing. Like, there's a little bit more
Amen
depth
to
to it.
that.
And so he talked about this idea of bushwhacking. So you got your day, the track runs out. This is the day you enter the wilderness. There's no more paths pre-made for you. You have to make the paths, so you have to go bushwhacking. And that's scary. But what he says about the fear of it, and I think he connects it slightly to a main question a lot of people have with Christianity and Catholicism in general. How can God be a good father if he leaves me in so much pain? God doesn't rescue us. God wants more for us than we want for ourselves. God wants you to become stronger. Your faith doesn't grow in a place without opposition. So the idea that you're going out, you don't know exactly where you're going, and that trials and tribulations happen to you to make you stronger, to become better than you were before. God only gives you enough grace basically to see the next step in front of you and nothing more than that to help you to trust in him. I was like, that's like a really beautiful, profound. I didn't have a commencement speech, but that would have been pretty sweet if I heard that when I was going out.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I love that God is not a helicopter parent. I think that was another point he made, that God isn't like the big helicopter dad in the sky who's going to make sure nothing ever hurts you. But yeah, he wants us to be stronger. One of my friends, her daughter graduated from Ave this past weekend. She was there and she said it was such a good graduation speech. I didn't want it to end, or not last weekend, 2 weeks ago. Sorry. And she said one of the lines that stuck out to her was that we're going to live dangerously, that the world isn't. I think all of the speeches that we were looking through when we were preparing for the show, they kind of had this acknowledgement, that the common thread was this acknowledgement that the world these students are going out into, it's going to challenge them in ways that previous generations, maybe like mine, weren't anticipating being challenged. Like I was all new springtime evangelization, the world's going to turn around, like things are great, it's the 90s, coming off of that. But these speeches were more addressing a world where they're going to be challenged, there's going to be hardship, and God's going to be there for you. Yeah.
Did you hear his thing on Zamboni parents? Because he's from Minnesota. Josh would appreciate that.
I love
There's like
me a good
helicopter
Zamboni.
parents, and then there's Zamboni parents that they go out on the ice before and they make the
They make
path
sure it's
super
perfect.
smooth so that, you know, they don't have to worry about tripping and falling. So I thought Josh is a fellow Minnesotan.
I just thought that meant that we'd see him, parents would come in at, once and then do one quick roundabout halfway through, and then they'd be out.
Push him out on the ice. Like, you're good.
Yeah, so I want to give a quick shout out to Ave Maria, the alma mater. Great speech from Father Mike Schmitz. But the one that got a lot of international buzz was the Duke University commence from Jerry Seinfeld, which, it's Seinfeld. Who's gonna think there's gonna be a lot of controversy there? But there was a walkout, Erica, and
Yep.
I think the speech itself, maybe it's almost disappointing in some ways that got the attention, because it actually was a pretty good speech.
Yeah, it
on
was
all.
a decent speech. Like, once again, comedian comes through, and he's actually speaking some truth to power there, which is really great. But yeah, out of the 7,000 students assembled, about 30 decided to get up and walk out. And Jerry Seinfeld, God bless, because Jerry Seinfeld is Jewish and they were pro-Palestinian, anti-everything else,
Yeah, see,
protesters, stick it to the man.
Anti-Zionist.
That's really what it makes you wonder. It's like, it's not, Jerry Seinfeld is not from Israel. He's not Israeli. He is
Yeah.
Jewish. So your objection is that he's a Jewish speaker? He's an American,
Apparently.
right?
Yeah.
Is that what
So
some
like,
people
it
would consider
really
racist?
seems like you just hate Jews, right? It's not like you're against. If this was, like Natalie Portman, the actress, okay, she was actually born in Israel, so she's an Israeli citizen. You can be, then you say, "Oh, I disagree with your government's policies," and it's like, well, even then, it's like, I mean, what, you ascribe every government policy for my country to me? That's not really necessarily fair. But like,
Josh,
Jerry Seinfeld isn't from Israel.
You're trying to be rational, man. This
Yeah,
isn't
Josh,
rational.
Well, no, I
Thinking
mean, it's
too
just like,
hard.
it's worth recounting for our listeners. Like, it really is that these people hate Jews.
Yes.
Like, that's
Yeah.
really bizarre, and it needs to be called out. It's disgusting. Now, to be fair, thankfully, it was only a handful, like you said, about 30. It wasn't like a mass
Small percentage, yeah.
walkout, but still, it's disgusting.
It was still, yeah. I mean, we had kids at other graduations ripping up their diploma and shouting "Free Palestine," and you just like, yeah, it is. There's a lot of anti-Semitism going around, and it was just
There
it was
was-
just dumb.
There was one thing in there that I thought
Mhm.
it kind of reminded me a little bit of a C.S. Lewis quote. It was Jerry said, "Making work easier. This is the problem. So obsessed with getting to the answer, completing the project, producing result, which are all valid things, but not where the richness of the human experience lies. There are only two things you ever need to pay attention to in life: are work and love." And it kind of reminded me of, and I cannot remember what this is from, but basically C.S. Lewis was talking about the problem with seeing through things. Like, you're constantly seeing through, and if you see through everything, what's the point? Like, the point
Right.
is that you see through something to see something else, instead of just the constant, like, I'm just trying to look through and find everything. And like, that is kind
Enjoy
of
the
point,
moment,
I think.
people.
Right, exactly.
It's like when I told this before, Tom, like the time I went to go, my wife and I got to see Pope Benedict, face to face, and the couple right next to me were taking pictures with their camera, and I'm thinking to myself, just enjoy the
You missed
moment.
the moment.
Right.
You
He's
missed
right
the moment.
there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so I got a photo of myself and my wife, and then this idiot holding the camera.
Whoa, where'd those balloons come
Did you
from?
see those balloons?
Yeah, I have
Wow.
no idea. Is it your
Are
birthday
you
or
having a
something?
party there, Pogo?
I don't know where those balloons came from, but
He was so excited about what Josh said that these balloons.
that was a great
floated
story. The
across
balloons
this
just came out of
train.
nowhere.
That's
But
great.
yeah, and then I mean, there is something poetic about part of the speech being don't lose your sense of humor for people to walk.
And then all
out.
these students walk out and protest. You're like,
Come on,
yeah.
guys. And then and then we round out with
Oh.
Samuel Alito was at Franciscan, had some good points there, but I think the one
That's
that
a
was,
heavy
like,
hitter for Franciscan too. It was a good
Uh,
year for the Catholic colleges.
Harrison Butker at Benedictine. Did you guys catch that one?
Yeah, that one looked good.
Dude,
He came out swinging. I like that.
swinging. Everyone. Oh my gosh, I was like,
Not a
'cause
big fan of the Church of Nice.
He got like
Not a big fan of
overwhelming
weak bishops and
ovations.
priests.
Yeah, the Church of Nice is a losing proposition. I love that.
I mean, it is kind of, there is some irony in that we need to get a NFL kicker to come out and say obvious truths that we see problems in the church and secular society, and he's getting a standing O for just saying things that our leader should probably be saying. I mean,
Yeah.
I was
Jefferson
actually,
butt kicker.
he really is like, because out of all the speeches I saw, this for sure was like the most strongly worded, most pointed. I mean, he came out first off talking about how bad leadership affects society. For example, the COVID response, that's why a lot of these students started college in a weird place. IVF, surrogacy, abortion, many of which championed by Biden and other Catholics. So he's like, just being Catholic is not enough to make you a good person. Church of Nice being a losing proposition. And then talked about how weak priests and bishops are a real problem that we face in our society, and that we
He
need to
called
fast
them
and pray for
out.
them.
Yeah.
Priests that care more about how they look and how they're received rather than speaking the truth. And did not expect that from a college investment. I was like, whoa, coming out hot.
Yeah, way to
So-
go.
Yeah. Shout out Harrison Butker. That was pretty sick.
Well done, Benedictine. They got themselves a good speaker there. That was great.
And he talked about the TLM. No surprise. Big fan of the TLM. So you had to slide that one in there. Okay. So happy Mother's Day, Erica. For Mother's
Oh,
Day.
yeah.
You also wrote something.
Yeah, this is my first time in the Washington Examiner, so I'm going to send people over there what mothers really need this Mother's Day. So I got to talk about sort of the post-Dobbs reality, family policy and all that. So go check it out. Check it out. We'll put it up in the show notes for sure. Yeah, and so that was fun. That was a good thing to do. Mother's Day, love Mother's Day.
What's your,
It was great.
maybe people don't know this per se, but what's your history as a writer? You've been writing in many different ways for a long time, right?
Yeah. I started off writing in college. I did an internship with Crisis Magazine back in the day of the Morley Institute and the George Bush administration, and getting in there. So I sort of like cut my teeth there with editing and doing a little bit of writing for them. I worked at the Boston Pilot, which was the oldest Catholic newspaper in America until it folded. Now it's all online. So that was another stint that I did. I did a lot of academic writing. So a lot of writing for my master's degree in philosophy, stuff that maybe 6 people on earth will read or have read and no one ever will again. But I love writing because it makes you formulate your thoughts. You have to formulate your argument if you're doing it right. If you're doing it wrong, you're just like spitting words out on the page and it's not doing any good to anyone or yourself. But if you're doing it right, you have to formulate your thoughts. So I think all those years of the academic writing really helped me to clarify in my own mind
What
what
shifted
I
you
thought.
to more of a, journalistic, politics, news bent?
Honestly, being a mother, so giving birth to children and
Hey,
realizing
Mother's
that, yeah, so happy Mother's Day. Mothering made me into more of a journalist because, I mean, who has time to read someone's dissertation on Pascal? Come on. And like, let's actually write something that will do people good where they're sitting in their homes, something digestible
I
that
like
makes
it.
you think. Yeah, keep your
Who was
brain
it that was
alive.
telling me the other day they wrote a dissertation paper and they put a $50 bill inside of it and then just figuring that eventually somebody would every couple of years it goes by, it's still in there.
That's
Yeah, we were
awesome.
telling that story on a writers' meeting last week. It was a great
Yeah,
story.
that's great.
It's so true. It's so true. Oh my goodness.
And then also, Josh, I mean, you have a writing background as well. Maybe not everyone in the audience is aware of as well. Oh no,
And there
Josh
goes my
is
feed
down.
for some reason.
Oh,
Isn't that
I
nice?
lost it.
I'm still
Josh,
here. Can you hear me?
We can hear
yeah.
you. You sound great.
I know. Isn't that lovely?
And you
It's
look
just-
even better.
Oh, so
Ah.
true. Well, I started writing for the National Catholic Register way back in the day. And I was their Washington correspondent for about 5 years. And did that for a while. Then, actually, and then started working for Catholic Vote. I had a few different op-eds in other places, or whatever. One time I actually did this. I just for fun, I decided to calculate approximately how many words I had written, and I'm like, I've written like 1 million words. One of these things you say. And I'm like, no, actually, I literally have done over 1 million. That was pretty crazy. I'm like, that is a lot. I've done a lot.
A lot of
Yeah,
time
my
to
wife
look
is
up.
always amazed at how fast I can type because I'm pretty fat, so you'd think I'm pretty slow. But when it comes to typing, man, I can move.
And then that kind of both those backgrounds remind me a little bit. So we saw another clip, and Simon, if you could pull this one up too, the Hillary Clinton one. So Chris Rufo is kind of like a classic example of I think he was making documentaries before. Not that they weren't watched or anything like that, but he's one of the most vocal, outspoken people. Like, hey, I'm going to be doing these things, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing them, and I'm doing them to make this impact. So he's very specific about what he's doing. And I'd have to say probably the most successful of people on the conservative side of the spectrum in terms of making an impact and like gaining scalps.
The
is
man
what he
is a
calls it.
gladiator.
Totally.
Like, let's just be real. He like gets out in the arena and makes stuff happen.
Right. And
Last
so
man standing.
Simon, do you have that clip of Hillary Clinton? People might recognize some of the phrasing used in what she said.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the clip is actually a image, but I'll set it up. So Hillary Clinton, she joined the Morning Joe. So this is like friendly territory, right? And they were addressing the spread of misinformation, quote unquote, through platforms like TikTok, how that has fed into these riots and protests on campuses, the pro-Palestinian stuff. And then she talks about the role of education in combating propaganda. I mean, this is just rich coming from her. She's emphasizing the importance of teaching comprehensive history to counter slanted narratives, especially concerning the Middle East. And she says explicitly at one point, she says, education is not propaganda. And so she was retweeted a couple of times. This clip from Morning Joe was retweeted. And it's like, Hillary sounds a lot like Chris Rufo. And Chris Rufo comes back and he says, yeah, exactly right. This is what I've been working towards. And he says, I know we have that tweet, but he says, once again, we establish the narrative. He's like, this is what we do. We establish the narrative when it's high risk. Then we move the narrative from right to left, reducing the cost for those in the center. That's the way to a majority opinion. So, I mean, he sees this as a win to hear people like Hillary Clinton using his own language, even if they mean slightly different things. But starting to say things like education is not propaganda. The universities have weaponized education to to subsume students
When
into this
even Hillary
thinking.
Clinton feels the need to distance herself from the radicalism of campuses.
Mhm,
That's impressive. Yeah.
That hit mainstream. And then the top comment was, so what you're saying is centrists are cowards who will only come out and say something when it's socially safe for them to do so. And then he responds, generally speaking, yes. So
Yeah. They live
That's
in
it.
the zone of mediocrity.
Right.
Don't want to take any risks, but he takes the risks, and man, he gets it done.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just thought that was
he's
pretty
the
fun.
master at moving the Overton window.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast discussing, I'll have to go back and find the name of it, discussing we talked about his New Right Activism essay that he published about 3 months ago, I think, about taking back institutions, taking back language, taking back ends. And it was really interesting to listen to these guys discuss it. They were comparing him. They were basically saying, well, Chris Rufo he's not really a revolutionary. He's not really revolting. All he's doing is sort of taking on the tactics of the left in order to gain power. And they were saying it like this was a bad thing, or that this was somehow degrading to him as a and I'm no, he's
trying
exactly
to be successful.
He's trying to be successful and actually make real changes in the culture. And the way to do that is to take back the language and the institution and the ends. So yeah, it was really interesting to hear people trying to critique him. And I'm like, no, but he's actually getting stuff done. Like, he ousted the president of Harvard, for heaven's sake. That's pretty impressive.
That's why he's being critiqued, just because he's effective.
Yeah, exactly.
He separates himself in a lot of ways from, I think, what people consider grifters, or like Con Inc. is kind of, as it's kind of known, as people that just rage into a microphone but don't actually do anything.
Yeah.
He's very careful to say no. Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm here to get scalps. I'm here for wins.
Exactly. Yeah, they took particular umbrage, I guess, at his line in that essay where he said, we're going to reorient the state toward rightful ends. And the guys were like, oh my gosh, it sounds like the brown shirts. Oh, it's totally like, Gramsci and the left. And I'm like, no, you're showing your ignorance. It's
just not
Aristotle.
communism.
This is
Yeah,
Aristotle.
right.
Yeah. This is,
Let's go back a
everything
little
is
bit
towards
further.
an end. Yeah. Let's go back a couple more 1,000 years. But it was interesting. Good times,
Point up.
great oldies.
All right, we slide into the Twilight Zone now. Josh, you're up first.
Well, I mean, I don't know if you saw this over the weekend or whatever. The reporter asked Senator Mitch McConnell if he wanted to, what are your thoughts on running for re-election in 2026? And once again,
I mean,
McConnell
do we even play the clip? It's the
Uh,
answer was silence. I don't think,
yeah, there's nothing really other than just
other than
I mean,
sad. The clip just made me sad.
total
What made me so
McConnell
sad?
glitch.
So he's just like, he stops, he shuts down, and the woman next to him doesn't like remove him from the situation. His aide, like, she just stands there being like, what do you think, Mitch? Mitch, did you hear the question?
Yeah,
And
tone of
I'm
voice
like,
Are you
nailed,
good? Are you
nailed
good?
the tone there.
Are you okay? Are you all right? And I mean, these people who are keeping him propped up like that, shame on them too.
Bernie Sanders is running again too. He's in his 80s.
Bernie.
It's what's it got to be? Do we got to
And Chuck
pass?
Grassley, he's like 88 years old or whatever. I mean, it's crazy. So
So we have to pass something for maximum age at this point.
right, and the problem is, how are you going to get a constitutional amendment? See, right now you have to be 25 years old in order to serve in the House, 30 to serve in the Senate, 35 in the White House. There could be, those are minimum ages. What if we had a maximum age? Like 80 is enough.
Oh, please.
And
help us.
therefore you would not be able to hold elective office after that. That seems kind of sensible, but the problem with that is you would need 2/3 of the House and the Senate to vote on that.
And they're all
That's not going
agreeing.
to happen anytime soon. So you get the government you want.
What if
whether you get it, whether you want it or not.
Here's a thought. What if, how there's special interest groups like NGOs, or not NGOs, more like nonprofits that fund challengers intentionally? What if we just created one with the express purpose of going after people of advanced age, saying like, our whole thing is we are going to fund primary challengers for politicians in their late 80s.
Yeah, anyone over 80 would be interesting. Yeah, but
You know what I
then
mean?
again,
Like,
look, this is both candidates for president are gonna. Whoever gets elected is gonna be over 80 years old.
not thrilled about that either.
Right.
I've been
Not
very
thrilled about
clear.
it,
I am
but-
not thrilled about that either. No one should be in politics in their 80s.
Like you look at it, like James Madison was like 23 3 years old or something like that when he was working on the Constitution. All these founding fathers were really young for the most part, except for Ben Franklin. They were all in their 20s. Now we have people in their 80s, and the incentive is for everyone to hold on to power. Again, who's gonna have the gumption to try to challenge Mitch McConnell in the Republican primary? I mean, the guy's got so much power.
Whoever my nonprofit finds from Kentucky.
Yeah, it's kind of the
We're
same
taking them out.
phenomenon as these like performers who are still performing the songs that they wrote when they were 17 and now they're like 60 something. How old is Madonna? And she's
Oh,
still
no.
dancing around in the same stuff she was wearing in the 80s, but she's
Yeah.
over 60 now.
Yeah, but
And
at
you're
least
just-
it's a little bit. It's kind of stupid, but it's harmless. Like,
Yeah,
so,
right.
like I have
I
someone
don't-
in my family who will go to every New Kids on the Block
Yeah.
thing, and I'm like, you're like in your 50s or whatever. You still going to this? It's kind of dumb, but for it's an escapist night, I guess, where she gets to feel like she's still 20 something, and
I still got it.
and yeah, whatever, and they do the song, but it's not like New Kids on the Block are running the country.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
They don't have a vote as to whether or not we go to war.
that's right. Oh,
So,
man.
when Gen X and millennials are finally in power, maybe we could finally pass an amendment that says, you know what? 80 is enough. Maximum age limit. Makes
By the
sense.
time we get into power, though, we're going to be so old. We're going to have to put ourselves out of power. We're going to have to skip a generation.
Possibly.
back
The
to the
baby
younger.
boomers,
Fall on the sword.
no
Mercer.
offense to the baby boomers who are listening, but it is a generational kind of an exception. Just the demographics are such a large bubble.
That's true.
That's
Yeah.
why we're getting some of these people like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's like 150 years old and she's still in there. We talked about her earlier, so
She's crossing the Delaware in
That's
the UK.
right. She's
I mean,
crossing
she
the
knows
Atlantic,
because she was there, right?
Yeah.
crossing the pond, reverse.
All right, Erica.
All right. Well, it was Mother's Day, and it's the month of May where we talk about our Mother Mary. And I think I found the anti-Mary. This is true Twilight Zone for me. We have a rising interest among women of my demographic. So we're talking like this is our middle age crisis. The rage sessions that we are having out in the woods of the redwoods of California. And this made national news that increasing numbers of women are taking part in rage rituals led by these sort of
A
female
witch, I
gurus, witches. Yeah, basically.
I'm going
you
through the
go
website
out-
now, and it's scary. I don't know.
It's Sketchmo. Yeah, this is really, really creepy. But it's these like really successful women because these day retreats to go do your rage ritual cost between $2,000 and $5,000 for like a 6-hour session. So
Yeah.
these aren't not successful women. These aren't like ignorant women who were raised out in the forest. They're probably college educated.
I'm seeing
at
a
Columbia.
lot of colored frame glasses and white women.
Yeah, it's scary. So they go out and they scream and they smash sticks and they cry out. They streak themselves with red paint to look like they've been beaten up and bloodied too. Some of these are really disturbing images. And they go out into the traditional territorials of the Northern Pomo people in the Redwood Forest to connect with their preternatural powers and wild women essence. So this is just paganism, plain and simple. We talk a lot about the rise of pagan America. This is it, folks. Yeah, there they go. Oh man, look at that. And they're just beating the ground. And at first I'm just shocked viscerally by these images, and then I just get really sad. And
That's a lot of expensive athleisure clothing to be out in
it's
the
a
woods
lot of
banging sticks.
Lululemon out in the woods there and screaming. And it struck me today because we're in this novena to the Holy Spirit, and we're asking the Lord to send us the fruits of the Spirit. And I'm just sort of listing them in my head while I'm watching this video, like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. This is the anti-Holy Spirit movement. And if anything convicts me more and more that we have to raise women who have the fruits of the Spirit, it's watching these preternatural goddesses smashing sticks together.
It's interesting they felt the need for this because, women
Yeah.
have been really good at holding back and telling us how they feel.
Yeah, we've arrived.
Is this the result of women's empowerment? Is being able to go on witch retreats and bang sticks in the woods?
This is, as Carrie Gress titled it in her last book, The End of Woman. Like, this is the end. And just total anti-Mary going on here. So please pray for them.
Dude.
Today's the Feast of Our Lady of Fatima. And one of my favorite prayers the last year has been the prayer that the angel gave to the children, which was, "My God, I believe, I trust, I adore, I love you. I pray for those who do not believe, do not trust, do not adore, do not love you." So I'm just going to throw that out to Our Lady of Fatima on her feast day. We should all be praying for these women and working
Look
like
at this
hell to
website.
keep them away from our kids. That's what I'm
Wow.
going to end with.
Erica, did you go to this website?
I did, yes. And
Wild Wisdom.
the
And then
way of
I'm going
wild-
through like some of the activities, all like 10K a pop.
yeah.
Elemental activations to align with nature's forces. Daily rituals and practices to awaken your inner magic.
That's the rage
Sacred
ritual.
ceremonies for deep spiritual connection. One-on-one coaching with Mia
There's
Magic.
the woman hugging the tree, literally. See?
This
not just
is
some-
like
I got plenty of trees in my backyard. Give me $5,000. You can hug them if you want. But you're going to get some holy water on you, though.
this is
Sorry.
like the,
Seriously.
this is the end game.
Yeah.
Like these are all people who I assume think like Christianity and Catholicism are like garbage, and like
Yeah,
they're
they
like, oh,
think
we're gonna
we're
get rid
weird.
of all religion, and then they go to witch magic in the woods, banging sticks.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to play around with this stuff, man.
No, this is like
Yeah.
it seems
No
funny and
way.
harmless on with the women screaming in the woods. Funny this, funny that. This
It's
is
not
funny.
funny
Like,
and
this
it's
is
not
a
harmless.
cult. This
No.
is definitely, and they're using all the words of all religious terms. Like this is definitely cult
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Just get married and have kids. Like it's not hard. It's seriously
It's not hard.
so much easier than going to the woods and banging sticks.
Yeah. All right, Pogo. Bring
Okay.
us up a notch.
My turn. So there's been a lot of people emailing me about this as well. Basically, there's general American concern that non-Americans are voting in our upcoming election. It seems like a great way to influence the vote or elections here in America, election interference by bringing people here who are not American, sending them to swing states and having them vote. Now, every state does have different laws as to who can vote and who can't, but the regime media with Jen Psaki has said that it is a, quote, right-wing conspiracy theory that Republicans will weaponize if Trump loses in November. That's crazy. That theory is not only false and racist and dangerous. Now, you don't even really have to listen to the thing. That's the summary of what she said.
Gaslighting?
But if you now go down to scroll down to the comments, Nate Hockman come up again. Shout out, he's the best. We have some headlines here. Okay, that was me. But then we have these headlines: non-citizens' right to vote becomes law in New York City. Starting next year, 800,000 legal permanent residents will be eligible to vote in municipal elections. Over 42,000 non-citizens, including perhaps 20,000 illegal immigrants, could vote in D.C. elections. San Francisco renews push for non-citizen voting. Non-citizens are slowly gaining voting rights. Another headline. So
Yeah.
clearly, if nothing else, not completely the truth and misleading at best. At worst, 100% a lie. And I just think it's even more insulting. It's just an insulting lie because it's just obviously disprovable. But then to think that from any political spectrum, if I were to just go to Africa, if I were to just go to Namibia or whatever and demand to vote in Namibian elections, what would they call that?
Colonialism?
Imperialism.
Right. But for some reason in America, if you come from China and you are demanding the ability to vote in an American election, or even a political party's demanding for that to be, and I'm the one who's racist and xenophobic for not wanting that to happen.
You know, maybe we all should try to go to all these Latin American countries and get citizenship, and then just, elect people who will call their other people home.
You don't
Nice.
need citizenship, apparently. You can
Right.
be an illegal
Start
alien to
voting.
vote. So yeah, I mean, anyone that tells you that, I don't even know if anyone's saying this outside of regime media, but yes, the problem is that state to state, they have different laws about what you need to vote. It's very easy to manipulate. We've had plenty of examples of just strange activity going in elections. So yeah, it's a real concern. I think.
Are these
I don't
ballots,
know the
these
solution.
municipal ballots, 800,000 municipal ballots in New York City, are they going to only be ballots that have the local municipal elections on them, or are they going to be like a ballot that has lots of other stuff and they can just work their way up the ballot and mark other things?
Yeah, valid question. It makes me kind of creeped out too, Jen Psaki. I think next week she'll have something on, ballot stuffing is right-wing conspiracy as well, because it's she's looking, the left is looking down the line to November, and they're setting it up. They're setting it up to be okay, when Biden wins in November, the right is going to say, oh, it was all these illegal, these non-citizens voting. And then they're also going to have a story on, oh, the right is going to say Biden won because of ballot stuffing or ballot harvesting. What am I saying? Am I saying stuffing? Yeah, ballot harvesting or mail-in. And they're just like setting it up to how would the right explain the election going Biden's way, even though it just seems weird that they're anticipating that. Anyway, it's gaslighting 100% because they are doing it. They're like, this is what we're doing to win the election.
But it's like you said earlier, Tom, it's like they say, oh, this stuff isn't happening. And then it's like, well, actually, it is kind of happening, but it's not
But
so
it's not
bad. And actually, it's good that it happens. It's like, oh, again and again and again and again. It's like a spin cycle.
Yeah,
You find out that you were lying the whole time. Cool, guys.
The timeline's about 6 months, and it starts off with it's not happening, and then it's a right-wing conspiracy theory, and then the bottom is it's happening and it's good, and then rinse and repeat.
Yep.
So
Perfect.
And that's why I'm a populist radical, because I despise these people.
Tom
So
in a
much.
graphic. Yeah.
Tom in a graphic. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that does it for this week's Loopcast. Congrats to all the college grads out there. Congrats to all the mothers. We love our mothers. That was another just final observation, I think. I was at Mass, and they did a beautiful blessing to all the mothers at the end of Mass. They brought them all up. And I'm at a more traditional parish, so it's full of mothers, full of children. It's really beautiful. A lot of young kids. And just watching that blessing of like how many moms there were at Mass, and I just thought to myself that the heart of the church are women and moms. And for the odd debates that go on about the church is too masculine or the church is like led by too much men, like we would have no church without these moms. And I'm like, I just made me appreciate my own mom. It makes me appreciate my wife. Like the heart of the church are women, and we could do nothing without you. And the whole reason why we do anything on earth as men is for our moms, is for our women. So shout out to Erica. I just shout out to all the moms and my own mom. She's wonderful. And I just hope you all know that you're important and you're appreciated, and hopefully you got to hug some of your kids or over the
Well, and
weekend.
we'll return the kudos on Father's Day, so get ready for that. Because we
Sweet.
definitely couldn't do it without the fathers. Yeah, my
Sure.
kids had like a revelation at the breakfast table yesterday. The 5-year-old's like, wait. Oh, because I made a comment to Todd because he's like, Happy Mother's Day. And I say, oh, yeah, I couldn't do it without you. And the 5-year-old's like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, you wouldn't be a mom if Dad wasn't a dad. Oh, yeah. It was a great moment. I love
That's
that.
a light bulb moment at the kitchen
Yeah.
table. That's beautiful. That's awesome. So yeah, happy Mother's Day. If you want to support the program, loopcast@catholicvote.org is where you can do that. Join the Champions Club. Keep us going. We appreciate that. If you want to email me, loopcast@catholicvote.org. Loopcast@catholicvote.org
You had it.
is Champions Club.
That's your email.
I'm in too deep.
No, that's your
I'm in too deep. But if you want to
Go
support
to our
us elsewhere,
website. Go check out our new book.
New book.
Get that.
Leave us a review like this, share it on YouTube, send us some stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We appreciate that. But you can pray for us. That's the most important. We're praying for you. St. Thomas More, St. Fidelis, Our Lady of Guadalupe. Pray for us. We'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.